first one we'll start with is in District 1. Obviously, that is a $140 million bond referendum. If it does pass, looking likely tonight, it will rebuild Mabry Middle School and O.P. Earl Elementary School, and also renovate New Prospect Elementary School. So their superintendent over there said a lot of their buildings that they want to renovate, they're old. The infrastructure is outdated, and they want to make sure they give their students the best opportunity and the best atmosphere to learn here. Over in District 5, that bond referendum, a $200 million bond referendum, will go to rebuild Duncan Elementary School and Burns Freshman Academy, but also put in a new middle school in the south end of the district as well. Looking like both of them will pass. And obviously, Gordon, Amy, with no tax increase, so some good news there. Right now, we're live in Spartanburg. Kelsey O'Donnell, back to you guys.
There have been a couple of other races in Spartanburg County that we've been paying attention to, one of which is the seat that David Britt used to hold in Spartanburg. He left to go to the Public Service Commission. There was a runoff, and that decided the Republican in that race. You see Paul Abbott there. He won the runoff, and Catherine Harvey has been kind of back and forth with getting a lead, going behind.
This has changed leader two or three times so far, although I would point out we're up to 79% of the vote in, and with about, an 800 vote margin here for Paul Abbott, he probably is feeling pretty comfortable at this point.
And historically, a seat that has gone to Republicans in general. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up here with the last little bit coming in. But Catherine Harvey certainly performing maybe better than some expected.
Absolutely so. And as you said, Amy, one worth keeping an eye on tonight. Let's move over one county. Now we've got another live reporter standing by. Let's go to, hang on. Boy, I'll tell you what, I'm holding the phone and I'm clicking these buttons.
Do I need to hold something for you?
I mean, it's just, hang on. No. I got it, Bob. I got it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put up this. This is the special election in South Carolina House District 21.
That's right.
Okay, so this was the Bobby Cox seat in the State House that was vacated at about the same time that Roger Nutt left the state Senate. That left this open. There is the special election here. These are both Republicans in a runoff to get that nomination for this seat. Steve Nail, Diane Mitchell. Not a lot of vote. In fact, let me pull this number up here, Amy. You see that? That is 0% of the vote in so far.
So this is the early vote.
Exactly right. Early vote and absentee vote. But we do have a reporter covering this for us out here. This is Julia Keener standing by in Greenville County. And Julia, maybe one thing that stands out here is when we do get a larger percentage of the vote in, that still might not be a whole lot of votes.
Right, Gordon. That was exactly the story tonight when we spoke with the elections director, Conway Belangia. He said, it's come down to these two candidates, that being Steve Nail and Diane Mitchell, like you mentioned, but it's not going to come down to thousands of votes. It's going to be hundreds. So that makes this race just a little bit closer. And what I thought was interesting is I asked him, ballpark estimate, how many people are in District 21, and without anything in front of him, he said probably about 30,000 eligible voters. But they expect only about 1% to 2% will actually make it to the polls today. So that's an interesting dynamic. District 21 covers the Greer, Five Forks area. So they were hopeful that, the numbers that they saw in the special election, this would grow even more in the runoff. But, we spoke with the poll workers, and the precinct that we were at probably only saw about 300 people from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. today. So it'll be interesting to see how this shapes up. But he tells us that a general election will be held December 23rd, and the winner of the Republican runoff tonight will be up against, they'll just have a write-in. Again, that's on December 23rd. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up.
Yeah, they always say it all comes down to the turnout, Julia, and what happens with these runoffs. And it was only like a 2% difference between the two of them last time. So if the folks don't show up, it can be a totally different race.
All right, that's Julia Keener standing by in Greenville County for us, where, to be fair, historically, Amy, that is a slow counting county. It takes a while to get the vote in Greenville County. You know what? We're moving sort of east to west right now. Let's keep doing that, shall we? Here's one that we thought would be interesting because 3 times now, Anderson County has tried to pass this bond referendum. This is a capital sales tax. It'd be 1 penny that would last for 8 years to try and build roads and bridges in in Anderson County. And Amy, look at this. 41% of the vote in. There's a lot of votes left to count, but boy, it does not look good for this referendum.
Everybody complains about the roads, right? We hear it all the time from our viewers. You guys write in about the roads. But you don't want to pay for them in Anderson County, apparently.
Well, not through a 1% sales tax. I can tell you that much.
Anyway, yeah.
But let's go to our Ariana Meadows. Ariana has been covering this extensively for us. I believe you've done 3 or 4 stories on this to prep voters for this bond issue or for this sales tax issue. Ariana, what are you hearing there on the ground from people?
Yes, that's exactly right, Gordon. I have covered this several times, and what I keep hearing are the roads are bad, just like you guys said. Even myself, when I physically see the potholes, and that's actually what one of the commission members were telling me, is he actually had to get his tire fixed last week because he drove over a pothole. And so what he was saying was there's people who aren't trusting the sales tax, and that's what he thinks is why people are voting no. But he himself says that he's, frustrated with the roads not, being paved, and that's what he was hoping for, was that this would pass. And he actually did tell me, he actually left a few minutes ago, and he was saying, yeah, it's not looking good so far.
Have they talked about, Ariana, like if this fails a third time, what they're going to do? Like what's the plan to fix roads there? What can they do next?
So what they were saying was if it fails a third time, then they've exhausted just their funds and stuff. They would have to start back from square one, basically. Yeah, it's a situation that they're definitely frustrated with, the commission team, because they wanted it to, some of them on the team are wanting it to pass, but he was just telling me that if it doesn't, yeah, they're gonna have to start back to square one, basically.
Oh boy. All right. Ariana Meadows, who has covered this pretty extensive. Look at this. I'm going to put these numbers up here again. Thank you, Ariana. 78% no. I am interested in something Ariana just said, Amy, which is, they modified this proposal each time they tried to bring it forward. Yeah. So it was a little bit broader last year when it actually lost by a pretty narrow margin just on last November's ballot. And so they focused it a little bit more this year and made it very specifically about a very specific list of roads and bridges that by law would have to be the things this money was spent on.
Right.
And Ariana, Amy said, people don't buy it. They don't trust the people putting this forward.
Yeah. Trust is a key issue, and communication, and maybe that is the failure here. I mean, somehow the message didn't translate to the voters, because they are definitely not, as Ariana said, if it comes down to trust, somehow something got lost in the translation.
No, there's no doubt about it. And I will say this, Amy, it's we've had 2 bond issues, 2 bond referendum in Spartanburg County to build schools where they were not going to raise taxes, and those are overwhelming landslide yeses. And here is a proposal to raise taxes in Anderson, and it looks like an overwhelming landslide no. People are saying, no, I'm not voting for taxes on this November's ballot. It's just that clear. We've got a lot of other races I'm keeping an eye on here. I want to pull up Greenville County here. There's a couple of these races I'm keeping an eye on in the city council. This is an at-large seat on Greenville City Council. And I keep coming back to Greenville, and you know this, Amy, from your years of doing this. Greenville takes forever.
Yes.
I mean, forever to count all the votes. There's a million reasons for that. They've had the same elections director since I've been in the upstate, frankly, over 25 years. But this is absentee ballots they've counted so far and not much else. Let me call up this one. This is Lillian Brock Fleming, the incumbent there, a little bit closer. But again, that number at the top of your screen there, that 0% in.
This is the early vote.
That's all that is. These are people who voted early in this election.
But Lillian has been on that council for 43 years, since 1981. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as the continued vote comes in a little later.
Since I'm picking on Greenville County here a little bit, let's call up Cherokee County here. This is the bond referendum, the Macedonia Fire District. That's a volunteer fire district in Cherokee County that has not raised taxes, and I want to say 30 years in that Macedonia Fire District.
Yeah, but the big thing here is this is one of those situations that comes down to the insurance rates you're paying in this fire district, and this is just a portion of Cherokee County, but they have a lot of calls. It was multiple, like 700
calls last year. That's
last year. So I mean, a lot of calls, and they're in an important area of the county. They need full-time paid employees because they can't get the volunteer help. It's a problem that's happening all over the country. It's happening in other fire departments around our region. And so their answer was, we got to have the money to pay these people, and they feel like the referendum does it. They say if this doesn't pass, which we have no idea based on 0% what's happening with it.
We literally have no idea.
We have no idea.
That's right.
But it is an important situation for homeowners in that area, because your insurance rates, if they lose their rating of the ISO rating, as they call it, if they lose that, then your insurance rates could go up dramatically. And in some cases, you may not be able to insure your place. So it's really an important issue.
It does at this point become an issue of, do you pay more in property taxes now, or do you pay more insurance rates later?
Yeah.
And I guess depending on the value of your house, that's really where that breaks down for you. So we'll keep an eye on this. This is Cherokee County for us.
Yeah.
Let's check back in on a couple of these races we've been keeping an eye on. Another thing to keep an eye on, as this one has just kept going the same way it's been going. Amy, we mentioned a couple of the national races that we were particularly interested in today. There's not a lot, frankly. A couple of states are electing governors. In Virginia, they had two women on the ballot. The Democrat and the Republican were both women. So one of them was going to become the first woman governor of Virginia in history. And it looks like in this case, Decision Desk, all the others have called that for the Democrat, Abby Spanberger, a former member of Congress. So we can tell you the Democrats pick up the governor's mansion in the state of Virginia. That's one we're keeping an eye on. The other one, of course, that has drawn a tremendous amount of national attention for a mayor's race. Of course, it's a mayor of a city of 8 million people.
Yeah, the biggest city in the world, or one of them. Yeah.
City of New York is certainly the biggest in this country.
Yes.
And Amy, I keep coming back to that one, and I am not seeing any votes counted. Well, now I am, actually. Looks like Zoran Mamdani, he is the one who's running as a Democratic Socialist in that race, running against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was running as a Democrat, now running as an independent. The Republican in that race is a Curtis Sliwa. It looks like, especially, let me see if I can pull this up here. I think I can.
Let me tell you, Decision Desk, our company owns Decision Desk, or works in concert with Decision Desk, and they have projected Mamdani the winner.
Oh, they've already called that.
They have called that projected winner. That just happened 9:03. So just a little bit ago. So that's a fresh kind of piece of information. And I will tell you, I've followed Decision Desk for 15 years, and they are always first, and I've never seen them be wrong. They're really, really good. So we will see what happens.
Look at I figured it out.
There we go.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what. I have the technical savvy of a 4-year-old. But,
yeah, that's
but
fantastic.
Here, check this out. So these are the results they've counted so far. You mentioned Decision Desk. That is Zoran Mamdani with the check mark by his name, to your point, as you just said, Amy, with about 51% of the vote here, but they have only counted 15%. The Republican Curtis Sliwa, a distant third here, 8.1%. Cuomo actually got the endorsement from President Trump in this race, although that strikes as a bit of a strategic move on his part, not an endorsement of Cuomo necessarily, but sort of a check against Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist in that
President
race.
Trump also warned if Mamdani won that he would withhold money from the state of New York. So there's the city of New York. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens with that. But that is a really interesting situation in New York, because he is registered as a socialist, correct? I mean, he has talked about his beliefs in that regard, but he is an incredible communicator. Like, he has his social media apparently during this campaign has been reviewed by all the political experts out there, and just he's run a really effective communication campaign. So it looks like Mamdani will be the mayor of New York City.
It does indeed. It is about energizing voters at this point, especially in these elections. Although New York actually had pretty good turnout by the numbers we're seeing so far.
A lot of interest.
These are the election results so far. Since we're talking mayors, we'll come back to Spartanburg here. They have counted 83% of the vote. Decision Desk isn't going to call this one for us, Amy, but I think we can stick our necks out and say that Jerome Rice, the incumbent mayor of Spartanburg, is going to get another term in that office. He is just a commanding victory here in this race.
Yeah, interesting. And it's been interesting. The nice thing about politics and people running and having their voices heard is they raise different voices in the community. And Mr. Jones was really talking about development for everyone, and talking about the folks in certain parts of Spartanburg that perhaps are not seeing as much attention or progress as some of the rest of Spartanburg has. So it's important to have those conversations and to have those things brought to light. That is the nice thing about people being willing to get into the races and run and and share their viewpoint.
Yeah, well, in this case, it does appear. The other thing I was always worried about, what we got here? Oh, the Macedonia Fire District. How about this? I've just gotten this 100% of the vote in.
Wow.
Let's see if I got a graphic for that. Otherwise, you'll just have to take my word. There it is.
There
How
we
about
go.
that? That is the Macedonia Fire District.
They did it.
They said yes.
They did.
So this is, again, part of Cherokee County, as you just
Okay.
talked about a little bit. Cherokee County, this is a mostly volunteer fire district there,
Yes.
again, and by land area, one of the biggest in Cherokee County.
That's
They're
right.
running, if you said 700 calls, what's that, about 2 a day?
That's a
They're
lot
running
of
a Macedonia
calls.
Fire District. That's a lot for volunteers. So as you pointed out, Amy, this bond referendum passing means people are going to pay more property taxes in this fire district in Cherokee County. That money will go towards bringing on more full-time staff to run those 700
And they
calls.
estimated like $25 per house a year on the average home, which, I mean, when you compare to what would happen with insurance rates, is probably a bargain.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it depends, but
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on what you're insuring. But
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right, Amy, and it appears that at least 71% of the voters in this part of Cherokee County completely agree with that point of view and agreed with the fire chief. I want to say it has been 30 years since
I think you're
Macedonia
right.
Fire has raised taxes in that district. So
Yeah.
apparently the trend we've noticed is people saying no to higher taxes, but it appears that if you can wait 30 years, people will say yes to higher taxes, at least in this part of Cherokee County.
I don't know if you could bring up Central Pacolet, but it looks like they may be in for a runoff there. I'm just seeing that come into our Slack channel. Central Pacolet, I believe, had a three-way maybe
please.
candidate race.
Okay, let me go
I don't
full
know.
screen
We'll
here.
take a
Oh, I think I
look.
can do it.
You got it?
Maybe. Hang on, Bob's pointing at the bottom.
But anyway, so there's
There we
been
go.
a lot of folks
Well,
running.
I have no
that's
votes
only
counted
two.
here.
Okay. No votes counted. So they got a call in about whether that they think there may be a runoff there. So we'll keep an eye on it once we get numbers
Okay, yeah,
into us. They may have them like right in the local area, but they haven't gone into the system yet.
Well,
so.
and this, you're absolutely right. And again, you have fewer voters out there, but in some of these races, especially if you're doing a mayor's race or you're doing some of these countywide issues,
Yeah.
you're still opening all the precincts. You still got to bring back all the election machines. You still have to do all the same work you do if this was a presidential election. It might take the same amount of time for those election workers, and yet you're not counting that many votes. In fact, you know what I want to check again? You remember Julia said turnout wouldn't be that great
Yeah,
in
to see
the
what the
District
turnout-
21. Well, let's see if they've counted any votes in Greenville County for us. The answer, look, everybody, Greenville County, so the answer is no. They have not counted.
let me.
not
I'm
counted
going
any
to check
votes.
the elections.
I mean, there's a chance we're not updating here. Bob, maybe you can check that for us as well. But
The good thing is that the state election commission does give you a pie chart to know like where people are reporting, and I can tell you right now that they are still talking about. Let's see. What do we got here?
while you look, Amy, check this out. I've got 100% of the vote counted in Spartanburg City Council.
Okay.
So this is 100% of the vote. This is District 2, Spartanburg City Council. Josh Summers unofficially is going to be the winner here. Actually, a relatively narrow race with Leslie Rogers here. Looks like a difference of fewer than 40 votes, about 36
Wow.
votes between the two of them. You know, this is a point when I was mentioning the Greenville race, Julia kept saying when there's low turnout,
Yeah.
the value of every person who actually does show up goes up significantly. And that looks like if you're in Spartanburg City Council District 2, that is certainly the case for Josh Summers in that race. Let's go to District 4 in
Let me
Spartanburg.
just add
Yep.
to you that Greenville County is still the only place in our region of the state that has no numbers.
That is, I mean, I'm telling you, it's as sure as Christmas is on the 25th. You know what I mean? All right, let's look at Spartanburg City Council. This is District 4. This is Jamie Fulmer winning
The
this
incumbent,
race
yeah.
over Dawn Maddox here. This race, maybe not quite as close, but it looks like actually, honestly, for a municipal
challenge.
election,
Yeah.
honestly, this is pretty good turnout. For a city
Absolutely.
council race in a municipal year, you're talking about 1,600 or 1,700 people voting, but you're right. The incumbent Jamie Fuller is going to take that race there.
Fulmer,
Let's
yeah.
check in on Spartanburg County Council here one more time. This is 93% of the vote counted here. It's going to be Paul Abbott who
Yeah.
wins this. Paul Abbott was the Republican nominee. That's why we painted it in red there. Abbott won that primary when we were in this room last time, actually, Amy. That was a very close and hotly contested primary there. Catherine Harvey, the Democrat in this race, is probably going to fall in the neighborhood of 1,000 votes short here, getting about 42%. This is the David Britt's seat.
Right, David Britt's former seat.
That's David Britt, who stepped down to take a job at the state level. So when he resigns, this seat opens up. That's why it says unexpired term here. The rest of that term, so this is not a full term that Paul Abbott has won, the rest of that term, the unexpired term, will go to Paul Abbott Jr.
And he is a businessman, works in the industrial spaces, and he campaigned to work with realtors and home builders to bring back quality housing. Okay. So instead of the pop-up neighborhoods that seem to pop up everywhere, he wants to change some of that. He beat Jason Lynch in the primary, and Catherine Harvey, by the way, is the Democratic Party chair for the county. So she has been active in politics. She ran for William Timmons' seat last go round. So anyway, interesting. And I would assume that this is not the last we will hear from Catherine Harvey.
Probably not. 42% of the vote in this case, again, with about 93% in, but that is enough for us to call that race for Paul Abbott Jr. There's just not enough votes out there for her to make up that difference at this point. I keep wanting to check back in on Greenville. No reason to do it.
There's no reason.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, let's go back to Anderson County, shall we? We're back up to 41%. And you know what's interesting is the number of votes keep coming in Anderson, and the margin doesn't change at all, which is interesting because no matter what precinct geographically they go to in the county, it's the same 4-1 margin in every single case by people rejecting this.
Yeah, this is definitely not happening.
It's wild to think, you obviously had much higher turnout last year. Last year's a presidential election. There's a lot on the ballot. There was a congressional election, obviously, in that district. In fact, in Anderson County, it was an open seat that Sherry Biggs won. And tremendous turnout in Anderson County last November. And it was actually a very thin margin by people saying no to this a very similar sales tax referendum in Anderson County. It's interesting, with somewhat lower turnout, you get the people who care the most about the race. The people who show up in these are people who are very passionate and moved to, I don't care that there's nothing else. This is the issue I care about. And the people who are passionate about this sales tax issue in Anderson County do not want it. So, I mean, there's 50% of the vote yet, but this would be shocking.
Do we have anything out of Calhoun Falls?
Calhoun Falls.
Because I know that whole community has had a lot of issues with their water system. There's been a sled investigation. There's been apparently a bunch of council members running for mayor, and those results are in. Whatever is done in Abbeville County is done.
Falls here. This is 100%.
So we got the mayor's race, and we've got who's winning.
That's Vigo Lassen, 51% of the vote, winning. Obviously a majority here. That's 100% of the vote in over Wayne Postel and LaShawn Monique Tutt. That's 51%. 240 votes for Vigo Lassen as the Calhoun Falls mayor. There is another race there too. There's the town council. Let's see if I can pull that up here.
Let's see what's on that. Because I know a lot of council members were running for mayor, so it's like I don't know what happened to the actual council races.
There we go. I got it for you. There we go. This is 100% of the vote in here. These are all incumbents here. How many seats are they voting for in Calhoun Falls?
Sure. I'm not sure.
Okay. So here's how the votes turned out. That's what we know about.
They could all be elected, or maybe just one. We're not sure if it's 3 seats or one.
This is the excitement you get in these municipal election years, quite frankly. So,
but for a small town, I mean, that's a lot of people
turnout.
voting.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
In Calhoun Falls, it looks like people took this very seriously.
Yes.
They have at least elected I've got this already in here. You know what? I'm learning this on the fly, Amy.
Hey, you're doing great.
This is the best I can do. But they have at least. Why does this say mayor?
Well, that's right.
Please.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, there's mayor. Okay.
And then you had, there you go. You got Vigo Lassen as the winner, as the new mayor of Calhoun Falls.
So congratulations.
Who has a lot of work ahead of him, apparently, to try to straighten things out.
That's exactly right.
We will do some follow-up stories to see what's happening over in Calhoun Falls.
We may want to designate a reporter to head down to Calhoun Falls, if only for our own education on the town council, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you got? Vote for two on the council.
Council. So the top 2 vote getters are elected.
Let's put it back up here. There we go.
Michael
That's
Brandt
100%.
did not succeed, but
Jeremy Manning and Amy Battaglia on the town council here. These would be the 2 spots here. I have to say, I'm getting all these text messages from our bosses upstairs, Amy. So
what are they saying? That we're doing great?
I'm sure it just says, Amy looks fabulous, and boy, Gordon sure is tall.
Gordon, what are we going to do with Gordon?
Okay, there we go. All right, so Amy, any of these races, before we cut people loose here, we only got a couple of seconds left.
I'm just quickly checking what's done. 96 is all done. We talked about that, I think, earlier. Cherokee County
Cherokee County, well, there's the Board of Public Works. There's the Macedonia one that we showed.
Oconee County is done.
Okay.
I'm not sure what was in Oconee. Let me look here.
I'm just going to check in on this one more time. I'm amazed by
I have
this.
some Oconees down here.
All right. Well, I tell you what, let's do. Why don't we focus, gather? We got a 10 o'clock newscast coming up on
We'll get it all together for you
CW62.
guys.
We have another newscast coming up, 7 News at 11 o'clock on WSPA. We appreciate so much you joining us for this special election coverage where one of us at least learned how to use all this technology, and some of it worked.
And he did a great job.
Yeah, right.
Applause all the way around.
That's right.
We'll see you at 10 on the CW, 11 on Channel 7. And of course, we're constantly on the news app and WSPA.com.
Have a good night, everybody.